You know, we've had a few hours now to digest it since last night. What do you think is the single most important thing that we should be taking away from Apple's report?
I think this iPhone business, talking about the Samsung event, I mean, I was at that Samsung event that John was referencing at Radio City Music Hall, and it showed how much progress Samsung has made in being really the number two rival, or the number one rival, I should say, to Apple. But we learned a lot about the iPhone business yesterday and what's going on in the iPhone business. And if you look at, the story of the stock chart is one thing, and I think it kind of distracts people from just looking at what's going on in the business. If you were to forget this, I'll show it to the stock chart, but if you can completely forget that and look at the business, you can see the slowdown in the iPhone revenue that the company's had. If you look at on a trailing 12-month basis, so this is an annual result, which includes the March quarter, so basically the 12 months trailing the March quarter, and you can see that the move from 71 billion to 87 billion, 87 billion in sales over the course of 12 months is spectacular and better than they've ever done, better than, as Tim Cook said in the call, than they could have imagined they would have done. But it is also a slowing growth rate, and you can see that they have expanded to the places that they're going to get to, and it's harder to grow from here.
And yet they sold 37.5 million iPhones. I mean, that number on its own just sounds incredible, but margins are suffering.
Well, and it is an incredible number, and again, as they said in the conference call last night, that these were numbers they couldn't even imagine before. It's the third biggest quarter they've ever had. It was the first quarter without a new product release. But that gross margin slide is really meaningful, and I think one of the interesting things is, Tim Cook talked last year saying, we've introduced new products. We know that when Apple introduces new products that they have a lower margin that's made up over time as component costs come down. Well, apparently component costs aren't coming down as much. The manufacturers of those components are holding Apple's feet to the fire and not lowering costs as they have in the past. And the iPhone as a percentage of sales is so important to this company. It was actually a bigger percentage of sales this quarter than it was in the last. 53% of all the revenues for Apple last quarter were from the sales of that iPhone. So when iPhone's margins are not improving as they hoped that they would, as investors were hoping they would, Apple followers were hoping they would, that's going to hurt these guys when it's such a big part of their sales.
And yet he did give a big hint that new product categories were to come, but there still seems to be some disappointment about this.
I think there was some expectation that maybe we'd find out about those products in the summer, and he said products and product categories in the fall. And that, that's a 13-week difference there that's important. Now, they did put a date on the Worldwide Developer Forum, this Worldwide Developer Conference for Apple this year. This morning we found out the conference is going to be in June. I think we probably might have expected as much. But that will be the time when they're going to talk about the big changes to the operating system so developers can start to write to. So we'll get a real big hint about the stuff that the phone will be able to perform and maybe new features that it might have.